Good evening. My name is Jay Rothman. I am the host of the show. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk, Live. Welcome back to Real Men, Real Talk Live. Tonight is episode 195. I'm excited to introduce in the studio this evening. We have a special co-host that's back since episode 190, Tyler Carson, aka Fiddler on the Rock. Welcome back to the show, Tyler Carson.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. As soon as I saw you, actually, I started feeling better. I had a moment of down just before this, ironically, and so it was really good to see you guys. It made me feel better.
Beautiful. Glad we can elevate your energy here.
Yeah.
Chris Morrison, welcome back from the East Coast. I know you are traveling, I believe, yesterday to make it back in time to be in the studio this evening. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, bud. I'm so excited to be here for another. So excited to be with you guys.
And of course, we have Kamalu joining us this evening as well. Tonight's episode, welcome back, Kamalu. Tonight's episode is all about finding and trusting our emotional heart. For those of you that may not know, what does that mean as far as the topic goes? Since Tyler is a special guest joining us this week, we had him pick the topic in a production meeting about 24 hours or so ago, and this is a topic that Tyler landed on. So, Tyler, I'm going to invite you to kick us off, get us hot, and let's get the show going on finding and trusting our emotional heart. What does this mean for you, and why did you want to dive into this topic tonight?
Thanks, Jay. Well, as a matter of fact, I had a big week, and there was a big pivotal moment in my career that links with parts of my life and all kinds of stuff. And I really went in with an open heart, really vulnerable, and afterwards, in the like coming out of it, I started to wonder. My mind started to get involved. Like, did I do that right? Could I have done it better? And it was just really fascinating to see how many different experiences I could almost imagine, and that happened automatically. It's like a reaction to having tested my limits, and then the mind jumps in and says, "Oh my gosh, this are we safe?" Like you just took a big jump there. Do you guys just to start with? Can you relate with that?
Oh yeah.
Is that's a normal kind of thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And I guess the biggest shift for me was just how vulnerable I felt with it, because it meant so much to me to be there in many different aspects of my life. So the fact that I successfully managed to show up authentically and vulnerably, I think really kicked up my mind. And when I reflected on that, I found myself wondering, I don't really know my future. My mind likes to think it knows my future, but every time I've tried to create that or manage it ends up just being like more and more and more work. And I burnt myself out more than once in my life. And so I once started to wonder, maybe the universe, like there's a Rumi quote that says, what we are seeking is also seeking us. Anything that's truly in our heart, in the connecting with the universe, it's like the laws of attraction. We're attracting something. And so I thought, well, maybe if I don't know whether I did everything right or not, the one thing I know is that I was sincere. And however it plays out, then there's a greater opportunity that more sincerity can show up in my life rather than me trying to control it. And the more I've thought about it, the more I felt at peace with that notion. And so, this is kind of an opportunity to kind of talk it out with you guys and help that kind of process through.
What do you make of that, Chris Morrison? What are you hearing?
Hmm. I'm actually to be honest, I was having a little tough time kind of hearing all of the different things. And so I'm going to pass over to Kamala for this one so I can just kind of dial in. I'm not going to make anything up. I'm just going to be like,
Yeah, I love that. The funny thing is right before you said that, I was about to say to you, we can pass. This is the volley.
You felt it coming in. I'm leaning in. I'm trying to get the audio just right, and so I'm gonna pass over to Kamala.
Well, before we do pass it over to Kamalu, I just, for those of you that may not be familiar with who Tyler Carson is and what his backstory is, just take a moment here, Tyler, just to kind of frame us out. What big event?
The only thing is that I'm not going to give details about this situation exactly. So
Okay.
You're welcome to share, but yeah.
Yeah. But one thing that is coming up, you have a pretty major event coming up in the next couple of weeks, do you not?
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are you open to share that?
Well, yeah, we can talk about that. So CBS Mornings national TV show found my concerts. Thanks, Chris. I really like to see somebody get excited about it. Touches me. Like I think I'm in a pretty sensitive spot. Honestly, yeah, you're cheering for me. Gosh, that makes me emotional. Seriously. CBS Mornings National found my show in May, and it was just someone showed up at my concert, and next thing I knew, 2 weeks later, I got a call from CBS saying, that person that was taking notes in your show, that was a producer, and they absolutely loved what you're doing, and we would really love to feature you in an interview and a filming of your concert, and put it on national television. So
Yes.
Thank you. And like this is kind of ridiculous. But maybe I should just let you guys feedback on that. I can see you. I don't know other people that are listening. Like that's celebration's really important.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. Well, there's two ways to celebrate. We either celebrate from the egoic mind, or we can celebrate from the heart. And the heart, for me, is what it's all about. It's all about coming from humility. And let's just say this: you've been at this for decades now, since you're about 5 years old. You were on stage as a professional musician by the time you were 10 or 11, if I recall, and you've had quite the journey. And here you are now, coming up in the next couple of weeks. Apparently, they're going to be doing a profile on you and your life story, which is also being released in a short documentary film that's been doing a circuit across the U.S. at least, and you won that in 2018, I believe, in a film festival in Sedona. That's what brought you here into Sedona, and that's what brought us connected to one another as well. Was watching you as a musician on stage, and I want to bring it back to tonight's topic of what is different for you right now in your life as far as finding and trusting and living in your emotional heart rather than coming from the mind, the mind that does a lot of thinking. What's happened for you in the last month, would you say, Tyler, that's brought you into this new space of living music, I should say?
Yeah, that's what I call it, the way I make music. Well, there's a couple of things, but just to finish also what we're saying, the TV piece is embodying so much because it's my career, it's my story, it's my existing livelihood. And it actually took a lot of energy for me to prepare for this piece. I more or less devoted myself to it for the last 3 or 4 months. And that has really challenged me because I'm committing a lot of energy to this, emotional energy, but I also need to be fully surrendered about it because it's TV. Like, who knows if this is going to do anything? And the weird thing is that it could go either way in a big way. Like there is the possibility that my life could change in that currently I spend all my time organizing and doing menial sort of logistics just to be able to go play music for people, just to be able to keep the doors open and do that. And I have people that are so emotional after shows and so excited and appreciative, but it takes everything for me to actually do that. So it would be quite remarkable to have something like CBS come along and say, hey, this guy exists and here's his phone number, hire him for a show. So I have to be totally surrendered to the possibility in either direction and of it turning into something or nothing changing. And the reason I devoted myself to it was because it was in harmony with what I needed to do anyway. I needed to improve a couple of musical techniques and repertoire. I needed to archive some of my old footage as a kid. There was just there's a lot of pieces in my emotional awareness that are getting invested into this gamble of sorts. So along the same lines, suddenly I'm finding, okay, I'm growing. I'm stepping into a self that is more true. Like I should have my voice in the world. I should have my music with people listening. And what I've had to address was this other part of me that gets really scared. There's a part of me that since I was a kid, it actually seems to keep coming back to being a kid. I always kind of thought, oh, I'm going to make it. Something's going to click. Something's going to happen. And it's turned out that there's a lot of inner emotions that are probably from my younger years that are really wanting my attention. And fortunately, I'm going to have to, I get to plug Mr. J and his hike and heal process, which he does for every fortunate, amazing human that comes to Sedona and says yes to this on their soul level. They get to discover that we are so much more free and so much more loved than we've ever allowed ourselves to be. As soon as we can start talking the parts that feel like they are not loved. And those are the young memories that are stuck. So between those two challenges and with the solution of the love, my heart has been kind of wide open through this whole thing. Yeah, just way totally wide open. Yeah.
Kamala, what are you hearing so far? What do you make of what Tyler has shared with us tonight, as it relates to finding and trusting our emotional heart, and his experience as he's experiencing his heart opening wide right now?
Well, to me, it sounds like he's ready.
Wow, that's great.
And I think there's something you touched on earlier, Tyler, that that really resonated and I think plays into why this is happening now. And that's that Rumi quote you mentioned about how the things that are meant for us are also seeking us. What we seek is also seeking us. I've heard it explained kind of as like a magnet, like a magnetic frequency. And we have a core frequency of who we are, but based off of belief systems and of worthiness or who we think we are, who we're supposed to be, we kind of create this distance between us and the things that are really true and real for us. And, if you've ever held magnets together, there's sometimes a really strong pull and sometimes a really heavy aversion. And so I've heard that things that aren't meant for us are trying their hardest to get away from us, just like in those magnets, but it's our clinging and holding on to them that creates all of this suffering. And so when we're actually able to tap into the core frequency of who we are, the things that aren't meant for us just go out the window naturally. That's just their nature when we let it go. And when we also let it go, we allow the space for those things that are naturally attracted to us to come home. And so what I'm hearing is it sounds like you've been on a process and a journey of coming home, letting go of the things that aren't really yours. And now here's this opportunity. Here's this thing that you've wanted and envisioned for so long. And I think it says a lot about where you're at in terms of your self-confidence and self-embodiment. And regardless of what happens, man, I'm really proud of you. I'm really excited to see what happens here. And just a reminder that, you know, what is meant for you will come and is coming.
Thank you.
How does that feel, Ty?
It's really beautiful. It's all the things that I've lived by, and I'm learning to live more and more by, and to be vulnerable, and which is our intention of this whole thing. There's also a part of me that is really hurting because it's like, one more time, I gotta do this one more time, you know. And when and so yeah, I won't take up all the time explaining that, but there's that opposite reaction too, right?
What is, when you say do this one more time, what is this?
Yeah.
I think that's the younger part of me saying, I gotta be brave again. I gotta go through this again and risk being hurt again. Risk that this turns out to be just another thing where I go out and pour my heart out, and the world says, "Oh, isn't that sweet?" And that really made my day, and switch the channel.
And so what if they do?
Well, this is the thing that I was actually getting triggered by before I came on here. I was just, you know, it's come up a little bit more recently because I turned 40, and right around that time, I got divorced unexpectedly. Everything just changed, and I've invested. I invested a lot in that relationship, you know, and I wanted to see something grow. I want a family to grow, and I've invested a lot in my career. And so sometimes I do wonder and check with my heart about, am I doing the right thing here? You know, because at some point it's you got to wonder, like, at what point do I worry about getting like retirement? I that might sound crazy, but at what point do I worry about the fact that my finances are not at all the way that I would create them if there was any kind of reasonable situation? So it just brings up that question again. If it doesn't, nothing really changes, but it asks me to go back to my heart again, and it would. I don't know. I guess is one of the answers to that.
And here's what I'd like to invite you to do is understand that for all of us, we don't have to do this thing alone anymore. Meaning, if we open our hearts, and we also open our hearts not just to experience life more from here rather than here, but what if we open ourselves up for infinite possibilities, believing that we have infinite possibilities, tapping into God, divine source, the universe. And we live in Sedona, so I can say that. I feel comfortable saying that. That is, but why not? Like, we don't have to do this alone anymore. We can invite God into this new relationship with your heart open, and just trust that, man, you got 25 years to retirement anyway, depending on when you want to retire. But it's really about just showing up and trusting that you're right where we are, right where we are supposed to be as men in this journey, this thing called life. And so, Chris, you've had some time here to be listening and all. What are you making of all this? And I want to ask you this question also. What does it feel like to live in your heart space? Is this a new space for you right now, as you're going through a season of change as well in your life? Have you been able to open your heart, and what does that feel like if you have?
First, I just want to go back and say, Tyler, I deeply acknowledge you for like showing up for yourself time and time again. And being an artist is probably the hardest job. You know, I've seen so many amazing human beings tore apart because of the internal dialogue. and the rejections. Then so it is the, I don't think that there's braver people than the people that put themselves out there, knowing that I don't know what the numbers are, but some ridiculously high amount of them is going to be just pass after pass after pass. And so I absolutely love it that you're stepping into this, and when you were talking, it really felt like you were coming back into alignment. You were, I hope, it sounds like you've gone out with Jay, and I know how powerful that is of having that conversation with your little self. For me, it's LC, right? I have conversations with LC. I had some conversations with LC this weekend, right? Of just like, and so, and just telling him like, hey man, like, it's okay. People are going to show up for you this time. And if they don't, it's you. I've got you. I'm going to show up for you. And so just that process, man. And so thank you so much for just showing up for yourself and coming back to around to you are worthy of whatever it is that you believe you are. And it's just truly stepping into that space. And then really, for me, when I finally felt worthy for the first time, truly just because I am, going and finding all of those little voices that were popping up of why I wasn't, and following those down and honoring them and loving them, and I'm sure that there's a long there's a list of things where you can sit and go, I love you because of whatever thing came up for you as a kid. So so I just really, it's just a deep acknowledgement for who you're being brave above all else, and an alignment. And so I really I'm always in awe of people that can take those hits and keep on showing up, because I know, coming from the addiction space, I know a lot of really, really beautiful people that stop trying and watch their souls die and fall into addiction.
Wow.
Yeah. So many powerful music, I have an ex-girlfriend, Amy, one of the best vocalists I have ever met. Can sing, like Amy Winehouse, or I can't remember the lady from Evanescence. She drank herself to death, 32, because she couldn't handle that. She didn't have the support system. She didn't have the people around her telling you, I fucking love you.
Right.
You got this, no matter what. And so I think that's what we're here to tell you, man, is that you fucking got this, and we love you no matter what comes of it. Like, we are here to hold you up, dust you off, and be there for you no matter what. So, like, thank you for showing up and doing what you are meant to do on this earth.
You can't see, but like, I'm tearing up. Like, it really, oh man, just hearing that there's other humans that are thinking that deeply and caring that deeply, whether it's about me or anyone, is a gift, such a gift. And it just speaks to who the deep reason why we're all here, which I think has to do with what kind of world do we want to see in front of us, right? Are we going to stand for a world where artists are being destroyed, for the sake of nothing, for the sake of the fact that we aren't looking at our feelings and unable to really value what's actually important, and ultimately, like, that the artist is just like the little indicator of, because we're all artists, we're all living life. Life is a game of art, it's a practice of art. and so it just means a lot. I'm kind of blown away just to get that frequency from you, Matt. Just like that will carry me through all kinds of things.
Welcome home, Tyler Carson.
Yeah.
You've heard me say that before, but welcome home. And I want to switch gears here right now, and really dive a little bit deeper into the why around why this topic was so important for you, and you wanted us to dive into it tonight. Is we hear it all the time. I hear it all the time. How many times women break up with their man, their partner, their husband, their boyfriend, whomever, because their partner is not emotionally available. And that for many can be a deal breaker. And it's not just men that are walled off. There's plenty of women that are walled off as well. But it's very rare that I hear on the streets or in the trails or on the trails of a man breaking up with a woman because she's detached from her heart. She's not accessible in our heart space. We hear it so much more often of women that are walking out or walking away from relationships because their partner is not emotionally available. And I think that this is such an important topic for us to be talking about, as brutally honest as we're willing to be. Why? Because I was one of those men. I was walled off from my heart. I had no idea how different my life could be when I finally had the courage, there's that C word, courage, and commitment, and then show up consistently to take a leap of faith that if I remove the armor from the heart, the emotional heart, that I could experience a whole new way to live. And I tell you what, gentlemen, it probably is the most profound gift that I have received over the past 9 years. And I'm struggling right now. And I'll tell you why. Because of the work I do. Many people say, my heart's too open. It's caused me some physical, let's say, a physical shift in my own heart that created the perfect storm about 10 weeks ago. And I struggle with that because I don't ever want to go back to not coming from my most vulnerable, authentic self that I know how to, and that I not only experience, but I just love how I get to live, how I get to love, how I get to connect with other people at their heart space. And so I think this is really what the meat of tonight's show is about: is what blocks us as men? What has blocked you from allowing your more vulnerable, authentic heart self to be accessible and available? And what do you want to do to break those walls down? Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, I'd love to speak on that because it was linking right up already. The mind is this thing that if I get too wrapped up in it, it's a very good indicator that I'm not in my heart space anymore. Because when I'm in my heart space, I feel peace and I feel rest and things are in flow. When I'm in my mind, I'm linear and working and trying to do things. And that's only good for a very small segment of my day, yet it gets applied all the time to such a broad width of things. I think as men, we also have a tendency to want to lean on that because we are providers. That is part of our instinct. As much as women are nurturers, our goal is to get out there, make certain things happen. And so that's all based on what we see around us. So we have this double challenge, I think, of how to navigate back into our heart space.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'd say that's a little tricky at times. And I think that it's about balance. It's about us as men creating that balance within to know when it's appropriate to step into that masculine divine energy role, and when it's appropriate to just allow your heart, your true essence of your feelings to come through. So I do want to put this up on a screen because this is a really valid point that Horsepower Empowerment Through Connection has shared. She says, it's also about our partners creating safe spaces for either gender to be able to take off their armor and be emotionally available. Something for all of us to be aware of regarding how to create that safe space. What do you make of that, Chris?
Oh, wow. So yeah, there's a lot of, okay, let me sit with that for a second. Let me just pull that down into my heart space and out of my head space.
While you're reflecting on it, who wants to jump in and respond to this?
I'm good, Jay. I just had to take a breath. You know, as you guys know, like this last 9 months in the journey of just, you know, 10 months now of going, you know, filing for a divorce, getting, you know, into relationship, and then like I've, you know, entered into another, you know, relationship. It's just like I am doing everything I can to keep my heart as wide open as I possibly can. And then it's just like, for me, when my last girlfriend we started to have interactions that pulled me out of who I declare myself to be, was when I started to have to pull back, right? And so because I have such a clear definition of who I am, that when things are starting to move me out of that space, right? Like I'm not able to show up for my kids because I'm energetically so pulled out that I can't be the father that I say that I am. The words that I'm using are being turned back on me, right? So for me, like I'm going to keep my vulnerability, my authenticity, my heart open all times, and and just allow it to come through. I mean, I literally declare it, and you guys have heard me say it. And so it's just being really mindful of how people are interacting back with that. And we had a show that was talking about kind of protecting ourselves, and I can't remember the topic was, how exactly it was coming across, but and in this, like it's being present, right? Just today with my girlfriend, I wasn't present with my words. She was having a moment, and I tried it, and there was short time for us to get off the phone, and I tried to shift the energy to be helpful, but I wasn't present. I didn't ask, saying, "Hey, would you like my help to shift the energy for you right now?" I just was like, "Hey, okay, let's take it. We only got a minute. Let's take a deep breath," and like totally invalidated what she was going through, right? Because I didn't, and she said it very clear, like, I need to rant. Very clear communication. And I wasn't there in that last moment to just be like, "Hey, do you need help, or do you need some time to go reset before you talk to your next client?" And that did not go well, but it was still great because we were able to be vulnerable and open enough to just be like, "Hey, that didn't sit right. Let's talk about that here in a little bit." And we were able to come back around and know that we have space to come back and have that conversation. So
I want to applaud you, Chris. Like, I mean, we can't be perfect, but we can reflect, right? And sincerity. That's where I start to realize, if I'm sincere, then things can rearrange themselves. That can actually be a bonding moment now when you guys come back together, because you're going to be able to be present then, and she's going to understand that you were human, and then she gets to know you better, and then sees that there's trust that you come back, right?
And that's exactly what happened.
Really?
100%. That's exactly right. I was like, "Hey, I wasn't present with what I was saying. I'm really sorry. I'm going to be more present with those conversations. And it was really beautiful that I got, she holds up this mirror to see the parts of me that I don't know how many times I must have done that in my life. I wonder how many people I've been like, all right, like a golden retriever, let's make you happy. Cool. Didn't really ask them permission if that's the space that they wanted to enter in. And so I'm thinking, I've probably done that my entire freaking life.
With all the good intentions, right? Like
Still.
Well, and like what Jay said about balance, it's like, it's one thing to say balance, but I think one of the keys here is when our mind starts going, or when we realize we're into our mind space, including, I want to make everything better, which is such a classic, man thing to do, dad thing to do, husband, boyfriend thing to do.
Fix it.
As soon as we get into that mindset, it's a good thing to check, be like, hang on a second, what am I feeling? Just as a regular check. Okay, I'm very mental. Hang on a second. What am I feeling? And very often I've experienced that there's something motivating me. I need to feel better. So if I make them feel better, then it's going to do that. And then you need to know how to talk to that part of you that needs something. And I think that's the biggest piece that we've been missing. And that's what the inner child work that Jay does has been so amazing for. Because once we can start addressing the need, then it gets healed and balance restored.
Yeah, I think it also comes from some level of programming of idea of hierarchy of emotions.
What does that mean?
Well, someone's experiencing sadness or pain or anger, we want to help them by getting them out of that and into more happiness or into more joy. And I don't think that's entirely accurate. I think all emotions serve their purpose and have their place. And, it is wanting to help, but I think it's coming from a definition of that emotion that isn't actually accurate, because we haven't been taught how to healthily handle those emotions.
Meaning at times they may get misdirected and come through significant anger or rage, or misdirected. That's just one example.
Possibly, but you see people with kids, and they're like, "Oh, don't cry," not recognizing that the crying is actually the child processing and releasing the pain of whatever just happened, and that actually trying to get the child not to be sad and cry anymore is preventing that child from being able to release that, which has all the best intentions, but ultimately I think is the opposite of helpful in that moment. But it's because we have this idea that being sad isn't good or doesn't serve a positive purpose. And so, yeah, I think
That's awesome, Kaimalu. You're talking about the value of emotion. And we just have, and that's where we get lost. And also our instinct, maybe as men, is not as aware of our emotions. They don't come as forward for us. And there's so much gold in just, like you say, like there are not good emotions and bad emotions. We need to move away from that.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, Tyler, do you think that's a natural inclination of men in general, or is that more of a programming thing?
I think that's more of a programming thing. It's a sociological, cultural, especially in the Western world. I think probably indigenous cultures were much more welcoming, for example, and older traditional cultures, so yeah, it's more the Western world thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that if I was allowed to cry as a kid, not that I wasn't allowed to cry, but it wasn't that kind of like harsh thing, I probably wouldn't have hurt as many people as I did.
Wow.
Like, I was a violent person and I hurt people as a young person. And that's because, and I really feel like I was an emotional person that wasn't allowed to put that into a healthy space.
Mhm.
And it's just, yeah,
That's
and
what
for me,
Jay,
it's just that simple.
yeah, and that's what Jay was pointing out accurately, right? Like when we don't have, anytime we don't value emotion, it's dangerous. It's either dangerous for us or other people because it's hurting. It's gonna go. The energy is gonna go somewhere.
Both. Yeah, both. I want to switch gears here. Let's just move it up. Let's mix things up a little bit right here. Um, what role does the heart play in manifesting your true potential? Or what role has the heart played in manifesting your true potential?
Is it okay if I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so, because it's kind of all connecting here. Uh, this is the part that gets me. Okay, this is the part that I'm like, oh, this is so annoying. Being an artist has revealed so much beauty in my life, and it showed me joy to begin with. So when I was a kid, I'd get on stage and I felt joy like I couldn't even explain. And nowadays I realize that it was a spiritual experience for me. I could feel the presence of God. I could feel the presence of universal source energy. And the human heart, because you get in front of enough people, you can feel it. Man, it's powerful. It's physical. You can feel. I mean, the biggest example, I got rocked by this footage when I was preparing it for CBS. I hadn't seen it in 20 years. I was 11 years old. Actually, it's probably more like 25 years. I probably didn't see that after like 14 years old. I was 11 years old on a stage in front of 60,000 people. And they started about 8 feet away from me. And there was just a wall of people. And the craziest thing is my response was the biggest smile for the whole show, dancing back and forth. And, that joy, that's just pure blessing. I mean, that is just one of those things that you can't, it's like winning the lottery or something. And so and then it kept finding me. Every time I get on stage, I feel that joy. And before I knew it, when I was 25, I had a nervous breakdown. And the thing that saved me was my connection to joy through my music. I had a purpose that had cultivated in my life through music. And that joy drove it to the point that when things got difficult, there was somewhere to go. I could surrender into the music and somehow new information would come to me, and then I would blossom into a new level of experience. So if that's what's happening, how could I possibly stop what I'm doing? And yet I hit these inflection points where it's like, oh, everything could change. And Kaimalu's, the way you pointed to, it's like, what are the belief systems, and what are these other pieces that are in the way? Because that's the only thing that probably I have the ability to engage with at this moment in order to address how does my future unfold from here. I'm in my heart, but where are the other spaces I can get deeper into it?
Something that just came through while you were saying that, like you have this, have you looked at any of Joe Dispenza's work?
Not directly. I'm aware of him though. I know that he does a lot of visualizations, and
I just think like you have such a visceral feeling there, right? And there's I'll circle back around, but I think that with as much joy as that brings you, like there's some really amazing techniques of meditation that you can bring that joy forward into the future and relive it as if it's going, and shorten that time span. So man, I just think like,
wow,
you've already created so powerfully that to put that into the future for you is a really, Jay's healed his leg with the same, type of mental processes, right?
Yeah.
And so this stuff is wildly effective. And I think that it would just be, I don't know, you're so close, man. It's just like, yeah, like I just, what you have going on, and like I just have this, just for me, like you are glowing so brightly right now that it's like I just want to support you in every possible way I can. And so that's just something that came through. Like, how do we take
Well,
that
I gotta
moment,
say,
project it out into your future, and connect those 2 points of time and space? And like, so
I'm really resonating with that notion, how to bring the joy forward and move into it. Gosh, and just slipped my mind the other thing that I was thinking of. Um, oh, the thing that I have been hearing in my heart and feeling almost like God speaking to me, and not voices, but just like this one. If I really calm myself and listen, what I'm hearing is, Tyler, trust the music, do the music, and and I try to do that, and I'm doing it a little bit more and more. Um, but the thing that caught me today before I got on here was I was trying to upload my music onto the distribution channel that puts it out to Spotify and gives your music away, which is a whole other topic to have to wrestle through. But I spend an hour going through this thing that I paid money. They don't explain it, and then it comes up, says, "Oh no, you can't upload it that way." And it like, right, and then the next thing is that I'm also looking at, I'm trying to be both. I'm trying to be reasonable to myself, saying, okay, this is going national TV, so I at least need to make sure my website can handle a lot of people, that I have a little bit of good social media up, because I haven't been able to do that. It just takes too much time. Like, I'm doing some logistical things, but those are the things that are weighing me down right now, it feels like. And so what you're saying, I feel more light around that, and which is like this. It's like, oh, but I want to just do the work and then get the reward, as opposed to surrender again and trust and do a different type of work that has no guarantee.
Well, I think that's a key point that you're touching on there, which is to just like, and that comes into the surrender, comes into the Rumi quote again, is having zero expectation or assumption as to what the outcome of this is supposed to be. You can like prepare yourself as much as you like, but I think creating that expectation or excitement creating that expectation can create a very straight path to disappointment, and it can take you out of that. And so I would say my only advice to you, man, is just to like follow the excitement, do the things that are exciting. And if it's not exciting, leave it.
Yeah.
Or pay someone to do the things that need to get done, that don't provide you that excitement or that passion of what you love to do.
Mm-hmm.
Someone is excited about doing that kind of work.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm sure people who either do it or know someone who would be interested in doing it.
I want to ask you a question, Kamalu. When I met you the first time, what struck me was, well, there's a few things, but one in particular was, I really felt that your heart was open,
Mm.
and I could read it like like a billboard on the side of a freeway, and not in a negative way. It was in such a very positive way. And we've been in a conversation for 15 minutes at a restaurant, meeting as strangers. And I looked to my right and I said to Mary, I don't know who this guy is, but I got to get to know him better. And so I'm curious, um, how have you found your way home to feel safe enough to allow your heart to be a little bit more open and exposed as a man in his 20s, a single man in his 20s, to socialize, to date, to create, and everything in between? And do you feel like it's working in your favor, working towards your true potential?
Wow. What a question. Well, firstly, thank you, Jay. That made my heart really happy to hear and receive. How did I come back to it? I mean, if I go back to when I first started feeling that. Like for me, it got to a point where this character that I had created up here was just so unfulfilling that I found myself in a space where I didn't want to continue with my life anymore. And that was when it really like switched for me. But it got really loud through actually my work with psychedelics specifically. Something about that experience put me, and like doing it repetitively continued to put me into this space where I could see very clearly how I wasn't being myself. And the more I entered into the space where I could see where I wasn't in integrity in my heart, the louder that voice got, that like, you're not listening to me. You're not listening to me. And eventually one night that just broke. I was 20 years old. My life in Australia at the time had just fallen apart, and I was in like a week or two before I was going to move back home to Hawaii. And me and two of my closest friends there were tripping on acid and playing like little kids on playgrounds at night, just kind of hopping around from playground to playground in the neighborhood and just letting our inner children play. And as it did every other time I'd entered the psychedelic space, this voice came up of these ways in which I hadn't been real and true with these people that I said I loved and who said loved me. So I decided in that moment there was a little more permission because I was about to leave. So there was a little more permission for my ego. And I just was open and honest and vulnerable with them. And the way my friends responded in that moment was like, it's okay. Like, it's not a big deal. We still love you. We still see you. And that was when it really, really switched for me. I think moving back home had just been a continual process of like rediscovering who I was. But that was, I guess, the defining moment that really clicked for me, where I saw that I could be real and I could be myself and I could still be loved. Like those two things hadn't equated. I thought I had to be something to be loved. So, yeah, shout out to my friends Chad and Lockie and Sydney. You guys are such a blessing for me in that moment.
Viewers, are you getting what Kamalo just put down? Did you hear what this man just said? It was so profound. It hit me right here. Wow. And you're not that unusual, Kamalo. You're no different than any other human being that just wants to find a space where we feel part of, where we feel enough, where we feel worthy, where we feel loved without judgment. And that's what this journey of life is about, is trying to find that place where we feel safe, to just give ourselves permission to just be our authentic self, not who you think I ought to be. And I want to just add on to that, Kamalu, is that since I opened my heart, I've had multiple men and women, people in my life from my past, have a conversation with me on occasion and basically say, what happened to you? Like, you are not the same man I knew 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And then I asked them, the setup question, was that a good thing or a bad thing? Half a joke in that. And the reality is that each one consistently has said to me, no, I love who you become. How the heck did you get here? How did you get here? And so, there is so much freedom and peace within when we finally say yes, yes, yes to just being our authentic, vulnerable, true self. And if someone doesn't like me because that's how I show up, that's more on them than it is on me.
Mm.
Not everyone's going to be comfortable with us showing up as our authentic, vulnerable self as men, coming from love, with our heart open to share, to receive. And the more we are willing to take that little bit of risk, it will change your life forever. And I can only say that because it's what happened for me in my life. And so, does that make sense, Kamala?
Makes a lot of sense, Jay. I think something too for anyone who might be listening who wants to make that switch. There's a million teachers out there who have so many practical tips, tricks, and tools for how to do this. What I found is it really just took a willingness. And if you're willing to figure out who you are, you will inevitably find it. And it's not that hard. It's not like there's all these broken, fragmented pieces that need to come together. I think the real healing journey is realizing that you are exactly perfect as you are right here, right now. And there's nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to do to be home other than to just realize that you are.
What are you hearing, Chris? What are you feeling?
Can I just say ditto? Like, is that like,
Before you say ditto, you could also say, damn, Kamala,
Yeah.
I have to give you a hug right now. I'm
yeah,
giving
like,
you a hug right now, right? Does it not feel, I feel like that's what you really want to do. Here it is.
always,
Tyler,
always.
Kamala a hug right now.
Yeah, for sure, my man. For
That's
sure.
called a man hug right here, a man hug right here. It's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
I have
that.
no idea what a man hug is. I just made that nonsense
Yeah,
up.
fair enough. I just, yeah, for me, it has all of it's come open for me when I started to figure out who I am, right? The spark of the divine, all connected to everything and everyone. And that's who I've always been. And only because I allowed the labels that were put onto me and the things that were done to me separate me mentally from that spark. And that now that I'm back into that space of knowing that I am God and part of God, and we are all the same, have I been able to move into what you're talking about? Because I have definitely moved through all of those things, all those separations from, you're violent, you know, all I'm not going to speak into those spaces anymore, but all of the things that I have allowed myself to be labeled. And so yeah, man, and for me, it's loudly and clearly declaring who I am. I am love. I am I am worthy. I am understanding. I am compassionate. And then saying those out loud to the universe and to anyone I can. And then when that little voice that comes back up and says, well, what about this? I love that voice. It's like you go on a little journey and find out, well, where did that little voice come from? Where does that voice that says, whatever it is, any unkind, unloving thing that's said, I get to sit with it and follow it and figure out where the root of that comes from and then love into that space. We've all heard my story about Jaws and being labeled violent and loving my mom so much for being a 22-year-old mom who just had her kid kicked out of school and you know, all of the things that she must have been living in that moment, all the fears, you know, and truly loving her for like doing the very, very best she could with her unconscious, right? With what she didn't know. So thank you, Kamala, I love the way that was said. I love it, you know, especially because it's said in a completely different way than I would ever say it. But God, it's the same thing. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. And with what time we have left, we're just about at the hour. I want to give each one of you 1 minute or 2 minutes to put a pretty bow in a show and call it a wrap. Meaning, finding and trusting our emotional heart. Are you there yet? And if not, are you willing to commit right here, right now? And what would that look like for you?
I'm there
Okay.
because I declare it and I live it every day. And when I'm not, I give myself grace and I talk to my good friends who help me remember who I am and come back to I am love and I am, you know, I am my authentic selves and there will be no filter. So thank you guys for allowing me to continue to remember who I am, even when I forget.
Wow. Powerful.
As Ram Dass once said, we're all just walking each other home.
Mm. So
You're up, Kamala. What do you got? You got 1 minute.
I would say I'm there. The commitment is there. And there's always more layers of self to discover.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process. And I think that's really exciting. It's, you know, there's not some perfect moment we're trying to get to. We're always evolving. We're always changing. But for me, in my experience, coming back to the heart, being centered there and feeling safe there has opened me up to so many things that I never could have imagined. Like being on this show. I didn't know that this was exciting for me. I didn't know that this was something I wanted to do, but I'm just being open with this man sitting next to me at the bar one night. Suddenly, here I am. So, yeah, this guy. Yeah, so, you know, to kind of bring it full circle, when you're in your heart and you're open, the things that are really meant for you will find you. Always. People, places, passions.
So part of that is patience. Part of that is trusting that it's not on our time, it's on divine time. When we're truly ready to receive it, whatever it is, that experience, it'll present itself.
Not a moment before, not a moment after.
And that's the journey of really having patience and trusting. Thank you for sharing that, Kamala. Tyler Carson, what do you got?
You guys came in the perfect moment, in the exact moment, and I am going to say something that flippin' surprises me. And you know, I've already been encouraged as an artist and on this show today, and I think my ego, but that's not quite accurate. What surprises me is how resistant I've been to being open in my heart in all the places that matter to me. I can share my heart with thousands of people, and I've done that since I was a kid, but I've only just begun to share it with myself, which is freaking crazy.
Mm.
And honestly, it's been about healing a lot of emotional pain. And it's not about anybody being wrong, my family, nothing, experiences or, childhood. That's a soul journey. We only know what we know, and all the people around us, right? And we respond in our own way. And I've wanted to be like heart-centered and open, and I thought I was, but I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the understanding, which is why we're all here. And I think it's quite extraordinary, the variety of each one of us and our unique way of being in the world. And yet we're all coming to walking each other home, like you said. And I have a huge takeaway, guys, like ring the bells, dance around here. Like this is a big win for me. Doing what's exciting. Kaimalu, thank you. I was missing that. I was starting to miss it already. And it's like Chris was saying, it's right there. And yet we can just walk beside it forever and never take that one step across. Sometimes we need somebody to push it over onto us or knock us into it or something. But I don't want to do this with my brain. I want to do this with my heart. I want to share things that make me excited and share this experience, this moment. Like, I think that's what I want to do. I want to get online and start sharing. Like, I don't even like posting on Facebook because it's I don't know how to convey something that is really sincere in that medium. But this might be a way that I discover that. And that's what excites me. I want to do that. I don't really care about XYZ for XYZ imagined possibility because of CBS. And that's how CBS showed up, was I was doing what I love and not trying to make something happen. So thank you.
Yeah.
It'll be an experiment.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I want to just take a moment here to acknowledge each one of you here tonight. We show up each week and we do the show because it is about being real men, real talk. And wow, each one of you really showed up tonight. I do want to acknowledge you, Tyler, in this moment. You said something just now in your closing thoughts that is very profound. And I'm going to paraphrase what I heard you say, which is that all these years you've shown up performing for others with your heart open, living music. Yet the most important person in your life didn't receive that same level of connection to your heart, which was for yourself. I have witnessed some significant shifts within you over the past couple of months or so. And it has been truly such an honor to be a part of your life, hold you when you needed it, cry with you when we needed it. And all I could say is it's so worth it. Welcome home, brother. Welcome home to your own soul, to your own heart. And watch how your life evolves forever. Your ability to speak, your ability to communicate through music is, I believe, is only just begun. You're going to take it to that next level with your heart open. And so thank you for joining us this evening on episode 195, which was all about finding and trusting our emotional heart. I think you found it in the last couple of months. And it's been exciting to witness and watch and be a part of your journey home. Are you able to receive that?
Mm-hmm. As much as I can.
Okay. And my closing thoughts or words right now is, I'll keep it real brief, is we always have a choice. We either live in our head or we live in our heart. And as I shared earlier on tonight's episode, there's no place I'd rather be than living in my heart today. Even when our heart flutters, even when our heart at times feels sad or disappointed or hurt, there is no place that we can have that intimate relationship with in our own heart, to be connected to it. And so, viewers, if you're uncertain and you want to learn more about what that can look like, reach out to any one of us here on Real Men Real Talk Live. And with that, I want to thank each one of you for joining us this evening. If you heard something that you liked or loved, please share it with your friends and family. And coming up, probably in the next month or so, we will be coming in from Binge TV. We'll have more to share about that at a later date. But for now, I want to thank each one of you for joining us this evening on Real Men, Real Talk Live.